Hi and welcome. This time you join me back in the garage, about to replace my rear light on my Orbea Gain. It hasn't worked for quite a while, but as we're heading into autumn/winter in the UK, I thought now's the time to get it changed. So it will be nice to have it all back working properly again, and here's how. So what we've got, I've just taken out the saddle, so on the end of here, you can see on the end of there, that's where the Di2 goes in. Okay, so I've taken that little bit out, and there's a light there, so that's the back of the light. At this point, it's worth noting I've had to take the iWalk button out on my frame because I had to disconnect the rear light because it wasn't working, so I thought it was safer to do so. And during that time the wire has sort of snuck back up the frame, so I'm having to remove the wire through the frame and then kind of feed it back through at a later date. But you may not have to do this if your wire is still intact and still where it should be. So just to explain a bit more, what I've done is pulled that out. So already we've removed the seat post and the saddle, removed that which was attached to this, just to get it out of the way. Basically removed the light which is there. Now all of that, as you can see, needs cleaning up. I'm hoping it's recoverable, and then obviously down here I've lost the cable, so I'm just in the middle of trying to pull that cable out from there. It's down in here, I can feel it. So what I'm going to do is pull that right out, have a look at it, and then hopefully feed it back through. Excuse me. So yeah, we shall see. So what I'm doing is undoing this. Let's pull this right out. This is the light cable, there we go. Right, so that's the wiring that we're dealing with. This is the problem. That's what we're dealing with. There we go. Those tiny little wires is all you've got to play with, which I think is pretty dire, to be honest. Anyway, just what it is. So first of all, just going to try. So this next bit is just me trying the light and trying to get some life out of the light. I'm just testing it. I put the multimeter on it. I've cleaned it up. I've done everything I can, but no luck, sadly. At this stage, I'm getting quite frustrated with the whole light thing, with the quality of or lack of quality in the whole light system with Orbeas. Anybody that's got one that's got these lights on will know what I'm talking about. So I'm about to have a little bit of a rant. So to be honest, the whole thing is just shocking. I'm very, very close to just ripping the whole lot out. I mean, when I move this wire here, it turns off the front headlight. There's power to these tiny little frayed cables, but I love Orbeas and I love Orbea Gains, but this, I mean, this light is working okay at the minute. There you go. Tap it twice, it's off. There we go. I just think I paid an awful lot of money for this bike a couple of years ago. I just find it shocking, to be honest. Look at that. I mean, this isn't like the result of 2 years riding. It's never worked properly. Just take this camera off a minute. And what I find even more infuriating is they still make them exactly the same as this now. I mean, look. I shouldn't have to be doing this. As for this light, it's knackered. So it hasn't worked well ever, but now it's just completely. I did remove the back to try and clean up those points, so I've basically cut round here to try and clean up these points, but I think the whole thing is dead. It's probably full of water, I would imagine, but it's never really worked very well. But the wiring specifically is just, this worries me. Look at that. There you go. So if when you're riding, this is what Orbea need to address. If I'm out and this is my only light in the daytime, if it's getting dusk like they advertise and everything, look at that. Total crap. Anyway, right, so we will spend £30 on one of these and get a replacement. Hi, so it's a couple of days later from the original video. So this is the stage we're at the moment. I've taken the saddle out. I'll just have a look at that. So we've taken the saddle out and removed the wire from underneath. So that's the battery for the DI2 that sits inside the seat post. So we've removed that wire, which is this one here, this cable. That's also got the Wi-Fi attachment on it as well, so make sure that doesn't fall back down into the frame, and then we can put the saddle to one side. Okay, so here we've got the old light, completely knackered. I actually had, if you can see that, I'm sure I've shown already, but I've actually doctored it a bit to try and fix it, but it's dead, basically. 2.5 years in, but to be fair, it hasn't worked properly. Are you with me? There we go. So it hasn't worked properly for probably the last 6-8 months. I think it's been on and off. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And the trouble is, the more dangerous thing with the backlight is you don't even know whether it's working or not when you're cycling. Luckily, I cycle quite a lot in a group, so obviously you've got your colleagues, your friends to tell you. You know, they can tell you if it's not working, basically. So this came today, which is direct from Orbea. Cost me, well, it actually on their website is 22 euros, I think, but because of the UK's amazing Brexit free situation at the moment, so it was 22 euros, actually cost me 37, I think it's £37. Yeah, I think so. So that hurt. But anyway, this is it. This is the new one. It's coming. I have already opened it, but yeah. So this is what you get. So you get basically the little light, the same as I've just shown you, and you get 2 little screws in there. But I think for 22 euros, it's not a bad shout, to be honest. Nobody wants these things to break, but and I'm not going to go into the poor quality of the wiring and all that, and the bad situation with the plug. We've been there. I'm not going to go over it again. So basically that just sits in there, and then we put it all back together again, which will be lovely. So what we're doing is focusing on this area, and if you can see there, that's not really that great. So what I'm going to do is cut this down a little bit more, make sure that it's long. I mean, there's quite a lot of length, if you can see. So as you can see, I'm just measuring there just to see how much more wire is left. Let's just up that a little bit. There we go. Yeah, so there's a fair bit of room left still. So I've got to thread this wire back through here to come out back in there again, but obviously it needs tidying up. It's very worn. These 2 bits are no good, so that's what I'll be doing next, just tidying up this. Okay, so what I've done is stripped both of those. It's not an ideal situation, but I've got a limited amount of cable to deal with. I don't really want to cut it or extend it or anything, because obviously putting joins in these sort of things makes it even worse. So what I'm going to do is just solder, just a light bit of solder over these, just to strengthen them a little bit, and to avoid them fraying, and then I will feed it back through. So the soldering gun I'm going to use is this one, and I've just got, this is the only solder I've got, so that's what I'll be doing to use both of those. So this is just popping the solder on, and then the next thing to do is to attach the strimmer wire to the my favourite thing to use is a bit of strimmer wire. It does thread through really easily, so you can just stick that through. Let me put you in a better place. Okay, so I think I can see it now. There we go, through. So now okay, if you can see that, hopefully. I've just put the pliers on the end. I can take my hand out of the way. So you can just see it there. That's the end of the heat shrink. So that's the hard bit done. Just poke it through the other end with my hand. Okay, so this is the old light, and as you can see, I sort of mullered around the top to try and basically get it to work, but it didn't work, or all my efforts didn't work anyway. So yeah, that's that. So this bit here was over the top like that. No, it wasn't. It was like, which way around does it go? It goes around that way. There we are. Yeah, it doesn't fit very well because I've had a bit of a play around with it, but basically that was on top of there like that, with these two screws in there and there. So I've taken that off because that doesn't come, as you can see, that this bit doesn't come with the new one, so I'm just taking that off. However, we have got two of those new screws, so I think I'll use the new ones. So I'm just turning on the bike, which I have done. The front light's just come on. Now just going to pop these two onto the light just to make sure we know it works. And there we go. Okay, right, haven't said a lot for a while because just trying to concentrate and make sure. There we go. Right, okay. Once I push that in properly, hopefully. There we are. Finally, I've got a backlight working again. It's been a while. So what I'm going to do is push that up a little bit more. So I didn't put the heat shrink on there because with those two little bits of wire left, I don't know if you can see that, it's really not worth it. So I will have to just take my chance. So it's important to make sure you put that back up through there as you're doing this bit. Push all your wires back in down that way. Just be careful because obviously these connections are not that great. So pull it, if you can pull it from the other end, even better. Make sure that is all there. There we go. There we go. Right. So we're there, I think. Oh, it does look nice. It is. I mean, that's the thing. It's a lovely design, and it's great when it's working. They just need to think through the connections a bit better. So next is putting the seat post in. I always put a bit of grease on mine. I just use regular grease that I use for everything else. I know that's probably not recommended with carbon on carbon, but it's always worked okay for me, so don't risk it. If you're not too sure, you can get proper grease for seat posts, but I just use ordinary grease. Next, you get your Di2 attaching tool, just to put the wire from your Di2 cable back onto the battery, which is attached to the seat post. You've got the tool lined up, you just wait till you hear the snap to know that it's on properly. And then do exactly the same with the other end that goes onto the battery and wait for the click again. Then you just simply feed the rest of the wire down into the stem of the base of the seat post. Be careful because you don't want to get it trapped in there, but yeah, just keep feeding it on down. I did push some of mine down in with the bottom end of an Allen key just to poke it on down there, but yeah, do be careful not to trap the wire or break the wire. It is a bit of a fiddly job, but just stick with it. My cable is a bit too long anyway, but they're very, very expensive, so I'm not going to get another one. Yeah, just keep feeding it on through, you'll get there. Then it's just a case of putting your seat post back on, putting it back to where you found it. If you've marked it, this will be easy. I know pretty well where my saddle goes by the markings on the back of the saddle, so I don't usually mark it these days. But if you're not too sure, then definitely mark it, tape it before you take it out. Yeah, and that's pretty much it really. I just did everything back up and then put it on the floor. I'll torque that bolt up after I've finished, and that's pretty much it. Job done. I'm quite happy. Okay, for this installation of a new light, I used some strimmer wire. So you'll need the strimmer wire, you'll need various Allen keys, the new light obviously, a Stanley knife, small screwdriver for getting the little plug out. I used also an Allen, whatever you call it, ratchet driver. You don't need a bearing remover tool, but that's what I used for the soldering. A soldering gun and a bit of solder. You don't necessarily need that, but I used that, and some narrow nosed pliers, PVC tape, and your Di2 plug installer and remover. You don't need that necessarily, it can be done without it, but it's better if you use one of those. And also I did use a multimeter for checking whether my old light was right or not, or whether it was usable or not. Again, you don't need to do that, you would just have to replace the light as it's not working, but I did try and check it